Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fix Your BS, where BS stands for belief systems, and we talk about 5 major pillars: relationships, business or career, health, finances, and faith or belief. And, I'm always trying to bring the utmost experts in their fields that talk about one or more of those pillars, and today is no exception. I have an amazing guest. His name is Dr. Kien Vuu, and Dr. Kien Vuu has a book called Thrive State. I've recently purchased that book. You can see it right here, Thrive State. I've been going through it, and there's some absolutely fantastic information in this book that you should put into your life. He is a doctor that helps people overcome stress, burnout, and fatigue and get real solutions to health, wealth, and happiness. You can also go to ThriveStateSummit.com, ThriveStateSummit.com. Dr. Vuu has a summit coming up, and you need to be a part of it. So Dr. Vuu, also known as Dr. V. I'm Dr. G. You're Dr. V. Now we got the doctors in the house. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you being on the show.
It's the GV crew, just the two, about to do the podcast.
We're turning this into a rap montage. I love it. Funny backstory really quick. One of my nicknames is White Boy Got Flow. Just so you know, there's a story behind that. I've never told it, but we'll have to do that later some other time.
Sounds good.
All right. So talk to me a little bit about Thrive State, man. Who you are, why you wrote this book. It's doing absolutely fantastic, and it has just some great information in it that people need to understand, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Absolutely. Well, I am a conventionally trained medical doctor. I trained at probably some of the most world's recognized institutions, including UCLA, the National Institutes of Health, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, and really learned how to use the most advanced technology that we have in imaging, MRI, CT, ultrasound, real-time X-ray, to perform minimally invasive surgeries. And I was working on patients, that had end-stage cancer, diabetes, heart disease, you have it, and doing these procedures that were pretty much Band-Aids for how they were living their life and how they actually got disease. And I was basically doing this at the expense of my own health, because 7 years ago, I found myself overweight, diabetic, high blood pressure, on several prescription medications. And I had basically gone through these institutions that, were supposedly teaching me how to be well. But I basically bought into a culture and a way of living that created disease. And it wasn't until I started to do my own waking up process that I was revealing just how unconsciously I was living my life. And he eventually became the poster child of a famous Dalai Lama quote when he was asked what he found most interesting about humanity. He said, man, because he would sacrifice his health in order to make money, and then sacrifice his money to recuperate his health. And that's what happens when we live life unconsciously through a program. And in your case, in your podcast, what we call potentially the BS.
Yes.
That lead us to show up the way we show up and have the results in health and wealth and in our finances, because we're running a program. And as I started to wake up from this process, I did, part of the wake up process was doing stuff beyond modern medicine and conventional medicine, and studying people that live the longest all over the world and doing some more integrative and regenerative type stuff. In a very short period of time, I actually reversed all my chronic conditions and got off the prescription medications. And this led me to the most big realization is how we live our life is actually medicine. The energetics, our belief systems, how we feel, how we show up in the world, and the conscious choices that we make can either be our medicine or our poison. And so
Dr. V, that is so true. I want to back up for a second, though, because most people never get to the point where you got to, where they actually become aware and then take action.
Yeah.
How did you get to that point, the awareness of this is not working for me? And how did you turn that awareness into action of this has to change because I don't like the direction I'm headed?
Yeah, great question. Well, I mean, the universe gifts you with challenges and obstacles to allow you to wake up. Because if you're living in what the Bruce Lipton and others call the matrix, or the programs of your parents, your upbringing, media, and all the traumas that we had growing up, that's built a program in a part of our brain called the default mode network. And you're going to continuously go through life living through that program that's not the authentic version of you. And when you're not living in that sense, your body actually thinks that you're in danger. And it'll do different things to wake you up, kill a relationship, kill your business, kill your health, until you begin to wake up. And it was that same year where I got my chronic disease diagnosis. A woman I thought I was going to marry left me for another man because I didn't pay attention to our relationship. I had shoulder surgery because I had a labral tear and a big cyst came out and actually impinging on my nerve. I could barely lift my arm up. I was told I might not be able to operate anymore. So the year I thought I might as well not live because everything I worked so hard in life just got taken away from me, was the gift that allowed me to wake up. And I remember rounding one day in the hospital after, receiving all this news, to meet a 40-year-old, which at the time he was just a little bit older than me, but he had terminal pancreatic cancer. And I was asked to drain 10 liters of his fluid from his belly that is filled with cancer cells. And I was thinking I was going to meet some guy that was worse off than me and probably in a state of despair. But instead, I found this guy. I walked in the room. He's got a big, bright, smiley, face. And he says, "Doc, I can't wait for you to work on me right now because this is getting in the way of sexy time." And here I am thinking, here's a guy who's about to die, but he's still showing up in such a beautiful way. And I asked him, his name was Ishmael, "Ishmael, how are you doing this?" He said, "Doc, it wasn't always so easy. I used to be stressed out and angry after, my entire life. But after this diagnosis, the only thing I realize I truly have control over is how I choose to show up."
I have a story I talk about where it was me and a bunch of guys. We were hanging out, and there were a bunch of married guys, business guys, and obviously you start talking about things and problems that come up or whatever. And one of the guys silences the room. He says, "You want to get rid of all your problems? Get yourself a brain tumor, and then you only have one."
Yeah.
And everybody just got quiet. He said, "Yeah, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor about 3 weeks ago, and we really don't think I'm going to last very long." And all of a sudden, all my problems that I thought I had went away.
Yeah, I led a nonprofit called the Live Again Project a couple of years ago, where people were sharing the stories of cancer. And here you are thinking that they would be sharing so many sad stories, but many people shared how this diagnosis actually allowed them to live again. That was a true wake-up call to how they were living life. And for me,
do you mean basically that diagnosis, they realized that this isn't going to last forever? They realized the true importance of time?
Absolutely. And that how they were living life, the things that they were stressed out about, and all these things probably didn't matter. And it allowed them for the first time in their life to truly enjoy the present moment, to truly be present in the moments, to be able to enjoy them, to be able to be grateful that we are breathing and that they have the time here on this planet, not knowing when life will be taken away, to truly, truly live. And I hear that story over and over again. And it just so happens, if you study the work of Gabor Mate, who is a physician, studying chronic disease and cancer in particular, goes to show that some people that actually get cancer very early on suppress who they are, suppress these traumas and these unconscious ways of showing up in life that doesn't allow you to be your true authentic self. And so we're seeing people with disease. Yes, nobody wishes to have disease, but potentially is it a call from your body? Because here's the thing: when I had diabetes, when I had high blood pressure, when I was, I was not obese, but I was, certainly very overweight. That was a wake-up call. My body was saying something's not right here.
I think everybody, most people live. Yeah, and I think most people live that way. They live with the tension of who they believe they have to show up to be for everyone else, and who they really are. And they live this tension between their back and forth every day. And I think that turns into different diseases because there's so much tension.
100%. I'm going to break that down to you scientifically, and I'll try not to get too much in the weeds here, but I'll try to explain it as the best as I can on layman's terms. But, you know, as human beings, we've adopted this thing called the default mode network, a very primitive part of our brain and nervous system that develops before the age of 10. We're constantly learning as children, and we're basically in, alpha, beta, not beta waves, but alpha and theta waves, where we're just downloading information, not even, having conscious thoughts of what's right, what's wrong, but we're learning constantly from our parents, from our teachers, from society, from media. Now, the default mode network is intimately tied to our hippocampus, our memory centers, and the amygdala, our fear centers. And so it remembers our past traumas. And one of the things human beings are fearful most of is not being safe, not being loved, and not being connected. And the default mode network is meant to protect us against getting hurt, as there are brains autopilot and survival mode. And if we lose safety, love, and connection, whoa, we're in danger. But guess what happens? The things that hurt us as a child, not receiving safety, love, or connection, will allow us to adopt forms of ourselves that might not be authentic to please the other person. So it might be being a people pleaser. It might be chasing success. It might be getting a ripped hard body or looking a certain way to think it's going to gain you love. And what this does is it allows you to put on more masks over who you truly are. And if you live your life as in that frequency, that mask, that's not who you authentically are. And those two identities, when they don't match, your body is basically in disequilibrium, dis-ease, which dries up more stress hormone in your body, which causes inflammation to go up, your immune system to drop. And those two things together basically set the stage for chronic symptoms and chronic disease. Yep. So this, my friend, is why not being our authentic selves and living in that place of our programs will cause the disease.
Yeah, and you said it so perfectly without being too in the weeds, if you will. And that word that most people never hear, dis-ease. And as a chiropractor, I graduated and became a chiropractor, and then switched over into regenerative medicine because I realized the chiropractic plays a role in the whole body of improving, and there's a whole bunch of other specialties that play a role in that as well. And you talk about that a lot, in Thrive State. But the definition of chiropractic is adjusting the segments of the spinal column by hand only, but it's for the correction of the cause of dis-ease. So can you tell the difference between dis-ease and disease? Because people, I don't think they'll put those together. He'd be like, he said disease, kind of weird. Well, dis-ease is different than disease. So can you talk about that?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if we start to look at basically every single life form on Earth, from the tiniest, unicellular organisms to who we are ecosystems. We are concentric ecosystems building on each other. Within our body, our gut, we've got a microbiome. But then within our whole entire body, we are made up of individual cells that are working together to form tissues, that are working together to form organs, which are working together to form organ systems that make up who we are as people. And so these ecosystems have to synergistically work together all the time in this natural path. And the thing is, if you give it what it needs, this ecosystem already knows how to flourish. That is at ease. And so any ecosystem, whether it be the lush, jungles of the forest or the deep oceans or our economies, whether it's our teams or organization, these ecosystems share three traits, meaning each ecosystem, there is independence, meaning every little member of this ecosystem has to be able to function on its own. Every single cell in our body has its own function. But within this independence, there's a profound interdependence, meaning we rely on everybody else so that this entire, organism of who we are actually performs well. And then within this ecosystem, it is also state dependent. Then the messages we give to every cell in our body matters. Are we giving our cells the signal that everything's okay and you guys do your thing? Or are we giving the signals of the cell that you're in danger, in which case the cell starts to get into danger mode and protect itself rather than to heal itself and your body. So the signals of danger is what causes dis-ease in our body. So if our body thinks that we are in danger from the outside world, if we had a saber-toothed tiger that's chasing us, our nervous system is going to catch on to that. And we're basically in defensive mode. When we're in defensive mode, we're gearing all our ATP for defense, which raises inflammation and drops our immune system. And that is basically what dis-ease is. Mm-hmm. There is a point where you have suboptimal cells forming suboptimal tissues, making suboptimal organs and suboptimal organ systems. And when they respond suboptimally, that's dis-ease. That will be a case where you'll start getting chronic symptoms.
So basically, you're saying
that will cause disease.
Yeah, that's so what you're saying is basically if your cells and your body is functioning on a survivability, yes, not a thriving.
Yes.
So survivability is survive right now in the moment, anxiety, fear, stress, and at the cellular level, if that's occurring, it's not able to really thrive and move into a state of thrive state, because it's stressed out. It has to focus on surviving, not growing and getting better and bigger. Is yes. that pretty much? Yeah.
That's it. When you give the cell what it needs, there's already an intelligence. We don't have to think about our heart beating. We don't have to think about the processes of oxygen, crossing the alveolar membrane into our, blood cells. We don't have to think about that. There is already an innate intelligence that has created life on Earth, all the way from unicellular organisms to who we are. We just have to give it the right signals and it does its thing. But when we give it the signals of stress, that's when things start to fall apart. That's when there's dis-ease. And when there's dis-ease in the ecosystem, that is basically in the human body causes chronic symptoms and eventually chronic disease. In an organization, it basically drops your KPIs, drop productivity, burns out your workforce, leading you to poor productivity, poor morale, and basically having poor health in an organization.
I love how you converted that over to business, because it's so true. If you think of, I compare business to the body a lot. Yeah. And I tell people that I work with, because I work with doctors that are stuck in their clinic that own it, but they're really owners of a job. They don't really own a business. And I go, you got to think of the business as parts of the body. Your heart has a specific function, your liver has a specific function, but yet they do have to work together to run the body in order to keep it healthy. And I love that you transition that over, because I talk about that all the time. Being a doctor and in a business, you really understand that relationship. But how does someone recognize? So in a business, you would recognize stress by what the KPIs are, key performance indicators. You'd look at the statistical data. But in our country, in America, we have this idea that you wait until it's really bad and then you take a pill for it, and then you do meds, steroid surgery. That's kind of the progression. So how does someone recognize in their body if they are in a sending signals of chaos or anxiety, fear, whatever, and creating that dis-ease? Mm-hmm. And if they do that long enough, creates disease. How do they recognize that?
Well, at the very subjective level, feeling like crap is one of those signals, right?
Is that a medical term?
Yes, feel like crap. So, what is human potential? What is human performance? When we think of who we are, we've got cognitive power, a nervous system to be able to react to things. We have a musculoskeletal system that can scale the world's highest mountains. All these things are indicators. And when we are feeling our best, when we're feeling good, when we have energy, that's who we're meant to be as people. But if you're burned out, if you have brain fog, if you're carrying extra weight, if you got aches and pains, if you got rashes, you've got signals from your body that things aren't going right. And certainly they're laboratory signals. Nearly when I was in my concierge practice, we had people, who are CEOs and even athletes later on in their life come with me with labs where I see nutritional deficiencies, where I see metabolic dysfunction, almost in all the patients there. And so, we see insulin resistance a lot. And so there's different clues that we can take both in physical form and in laboratory form to let you know that you are in dis-ease. We are meant to be able to have energy, perform at our best, and really be able to carry these things even as we age. But if we're starting to have these symptoms physically, and certainly if our laboratories are corroborating this as well, we could definitely, with a combination of both a clinical history and laboratory values, and potentially even some imaging, we can start to see the full picture of what somebody might have as an individual.
Exactly. That's awesome. So, Dr. V, I know you said, in order for people to get in touch with you, obviously they can pick up your book. You can see it right behind you. I've got my copy here. They can go on Amazon or they can go and pick that up. But also you mentioned you have a summit coming up that you're obviously very excited about. And we're releasing this really close to that, to where we can get people really excited about it. So tell me a little bit about the summit and how they can find that. Obviously, if you are a listener of the show, you know that all these links will be below in the description. You can find it on YouTube as well as here as well on Spotify. So tell me a little bit about that summit, what it's about, and how people can find out more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, last year, right around this time, actually, it's going to be actually in 3 days, because it was the day after Thanksgiving. I found out that somebody very important in my life took his life. And he was somebody who was just the greatest supporter, the best cheerleader, huge in the Hollywood space. Who was the trainer for a lot of the celebrities that are out there. He was my trainer as well. But there was mental health issues in the background. And I remember going into a very big grief that somebody who was such a big light in my life suddenly got taken away. And through some of the pain I was feeling at that point, and certainly with everything that happened in the world during the pandemic, as well as all these things that were happening this year, right now we know there's a big conflict over in Israel and Palestine. We had AI this year, taking over people's jobs. We have people that wishes they had more resources in terms of how they could show up better in their relationships. And we certainly know the strike in both the Actors Guild and the Writers Guild happening this year that caused just so much emotional turmoil. And here's the thing. When people read my book, they'll know mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, and spiritually, all those things are energetically connected. And if you don't have the things that care for your mental health, it's going to spill over to all those other areas in your life. And so as a tribute to, my friend's passing, and as a passion project, I wanted to go out and give people the tools to be able to handle the health, relational, financial stresses that they have in their life, to really give them the tools to rediscover more joy, more happiness, more potential, so that they could show up as their best selves, their authentic selves, for their family, for themselves, and their work as well. And so I interviewed 50 of the world thought leaders in mental emotional wellness. We've got an awesome lineup, and it's a completely free resource that's going to be launching December 7th. People could get access at thrivestatesummit.com. And, certainly if people want to find out more about me, I'm all over social media at Dr. spelled out DOCTOR VuuMD.
Dr. VuuMD. Yeah, and I'm looking at the summit right here. It's fantastic. Some great people. I know some of them personally. I know some of them through social media. They've done some great work. And, if you're dealing with things in your life that, emotionally, mentally, physically, chemically, whatever, there's information out there. There's always two ways to learn. There's from other people's information and from your experience. Well, why go through the pain of dealing with those things? Why not just figure out from other people who've already figured the things out through their experience and their information? So sign up for that, Dr. VuuMD. Go to the Instagram, Dr. VuuMD. You can click on the link, or you can go to ThriveStateSummit.com to sign up for Dr. V's Thrive State Summit. It is, it looks like a ton of information, December 7th through the 10th. You can attend free. It's totally free to attend. So thank you for doing that as a resource. Any final thoughts, things that you'd like to say, really impactful things that you would like to add? And then I have one final question that I ask every person that's on the show.
All right. Sounds good. Well, I would probably say the following. As we're recording this just before Thanksgiving, I'm just reminded, I certainly have my stresses over the past year and constantly stressed out that there's certain things in my life not working out the way it does. But when we can have a moment just to ourselves, whether in meditation or breath or whatever it is, if we could just tap back into what a gift it actually is to be alive. And if you could tap into that energy of gratitude, it's a healing energy that could reverse any type of stress or physical or mental or emotional problem you might be going through at that time. How we live our life is medicine. And if we could remember why we are here, that when we can remember that our life is a gift to others, it'll start to bless you in health, wealth, success in more ways than you can imagine. So that would be my parting message.
That's fantastic. The last thing I wanted to ask is, what is success to you? How would you define success?
Yeah. Success to me has changed and pivoted at any time. But I would say true success is being able to be where I am and recognizing that this moment, everything is perfect and is okay, and life is gifting me with this moment. It used to be money, it used to be titles, it used to be all these things, but I realized it was the traumas in me that made me chase those things, and ultimately those things gave me chronic disease. But being able to recognize that at any moment I have access to more joy, more gratitude with whatever the world is giving me, that I don't have to be in resistance with what is, that is the ultimate success.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. V. I really appreciate it. Everybody go click on the links below. You can go see the Instagram page, Dr. VuuMD, or you can sign up for the summit at thrivestatesummit.com. Dr. V, thanks for being here. Go pick up the book, Thrive State, as well. All those links are listed below, or you can go to YouTube and click on them there as well. This has been another episode of Fix Your BS, where we talk about belief systems and the 5 major pillars of life: relationships, business, health, finances, and faith or belief. I appreciate you listening. Share this with somebody else that you think it might help. This is, we are doing hundreds of episodes over the next couple of years. This is about the 55th episode, I believe. Thanks, Dr. V, for being here. Appreciate you. Everybody, thanks for listening, where we help you build your dream life on your terms. Talk to you next time.